Now we are live. Looks like we are live. Welcome everybody to the 29-minute Hangout. This is Chef Doug. I'm here with my partner and I don't know what other adjective I would use, but Chef Katrina. So a friend, partner, and many other things. And we also have a special guest with us tonight. And because we only have 29 minutes, we make this very, very quick. So as I always do on our 29-minute Hangout, Katrina, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell people about the logistics and what's going to happen tonight. And our special guest, you can do the introduction. So here we go.
Awesome, awesome. So super uber excited to be here tonight on the 29-minute Hangout, guys. This is always a lot of fun. We get all of our guests to really spill the beans and share information that normally they don't realize they're going to be sharing, which is always makes this fun and exciting to be here on the 29-minute Hangout. Rules as they apply is that you guys absolutely have the opportunity to ask questions. There's a little box up in the corner of your screen. Looks like it's got 9 little buttons on it. If you click on that, it opens up the Q&A portion of this Hangout. You are more than welcome to ask questions of our special guest and really pick their brain to get the most details and pertinent answers to your questions. This is all for you, and this is how we bring these leaders on here. We sell them on the fact that they're going to learn something new from you or going to be asked to get out of their comfort zone. So this is always fun. So super excited with tonight's guest. It is Andrew Draughon. He is amazing. He is the editor-in-chief of What's Working Now. He is a brilliant marketer. He is a copywriting genius, in my own words. He is the deep thinker, and he is just an amazing friend. And I am so privileged that he has agreed to come on and be here tonight and give you guys the opportunity to really pick his brain and have some fun with him. So super excited. Andrew, thank you so much for hanging out with us on the 29-minute Hangout today. Can you do a little backstory about yourself, how you? I'm more curious on the What's Working Now part of it. I know we've kind of heard your story of how you got into internet marketing, but I want to know what transpired that allowed you to start getting 6-figure income earners to start writing for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So to start off with, thank you. I appreciate the introduction and super happy to be here. And so What's Working Now, let's see. What's Working Now came together. This would have been in 2010. Is that right? Yeah, 2010. And pretty much what had happened is I kind of synced up with the guys. This is back in the magnetic sponsoring days. I synced up with the guys. Actually, my first day of being a full-time member of the team was, I think it was literally January 2nd or 3rd. It was the first Monday, January of 2009. So I initially came on board, and my roles and responsibilities just kind of grew. So when I first joined the team, I was doing a little bit of social media stuff. I was putting together the old magnetic sponsoring blog and doing content aggregation and marketing and such. And What's Working Now didn't even exist at the time. We had a product called the Inner Circle, which I think you might. Here we go. Yeah. So yeah, we had.
I recognize that.
Yeah, we had the Inner Circle at that time, and it was
Volume 1 was your intro, followed by Volume 2. And yep. It started on here. I have May 2009, so I would say April 2009 was your first edition. But yeah, I do have the series. I can't help myself.
Yeah, I mean that's I don't even have those, so that's pretty cool. I have no idea where.
Yeah, those are priceless, Katrina. Don't
Andrew, if I bring this with me, will you sign it for me?
Absolutely, I would love to. So Inner Circle, we had Inner Circle, and the idea was continuity is a really powerful way of creating a sustained income stream in any business. So you kind of have to grow to a certain point before you want to introduce continuity, because continuity is a tough sell. People right out of the gate are not that excited about signing up for a recurring payment. But once your business has kind of grown to a certain level and you've got some front-end products that are really working for you, continuity is where you want to go from there. So we had Inner Circle at the time, and the idea became how do we make this better? How do we just go over the top and deliver just a really awesome continuity experience. And so, What's Working Now was kind of born out of that, late 2009, and there were a lot of conversations. A lot of thought went into, what's Working Now look like? And so conversations with, with Mike and Tim Irway and our affiliate manager at the time, Craig Allen, and myself, and we studied some things. There was a product I remember out there called Continuity Blueprint that we studied. So we were kind of looking like, what really works in terms of continuity product, and then the vision just really expanded from, being a print newsletter to let's, create a full-on multimedia experience. And you got to remember, if you go back to 2000, if you go back to like late 2009, webinars and Hangouts and what we're doing right now weren't quite this like ubiquitous thing where there's just like webinars happening all the time. They were kind of new. I mean, they weren't like brand new. It's not that anyone had like never heard of them, but they hadn't quite permeated through the culture, and it wasn't something that was just happening consistently, and not everyone was leveraging them. So it was kind of novel.
At that time, they barely existed, actually. I mean, that was really cutting edge stuff.
Yeah, it was kind of a novel thing. So it was like, let's then the continuity was more the newsletter format. So we're like, let's do something different. So now if you went back and did kind of the old school newsletter, that would be an innovation. But at the time, it was like, let's go like full multimedia. And so so that's kind of how it kind of came together. And we were like, what do we do? And I could talk about depending on how deep you want me to go into the thought process, but the various features between having what we called the What's Working Now webinar. That was actually the idea, is to have, which essentially the cover piece, that was the What's Working Now webinar. So if you look at the issues of What's Working Now, I don't think most people pay too much attention to this, but all the features are, they have titles, and so you've got the What's Working Now webinar. And we had the idea of the Ask the Expert webinar, which is more of a Q&A session, and it kind of evolved just to being an additional presentation every month. So the original idea with the Ask the Expert session, which is kind of the secondary, non-cover feature, was to just have a Q&A session. And so, but just making it really interactive, really playing around with some of the new technologies. That was the goal. And if you look back at some of the early issues of What's Working Now, you can see it's evolved. I mean, just in terms of the layout, the format, and obviously the contributors. I mean, it's truly a blessing that there are so many amazing people that contribute to What's Working Now each and every month, and those relationships have grown over the years. So when we first started, it was really me reaching out to people, asking them, hey, would you like to be a part? And initially I was more asking in terms of, would you like to contribute an article? So it was mainly kind of a one-time thing. So if you look at some of the early issues, you'll see there are a lot of kind of one-off pieces. But then it kind of dawned on me like, well, wait, magazines, they have columns, they have regular contributors. Let's see if I can engage some people that would like to become regulars, people that, would really enjoy, writing on a consistent basis. So it's just really grown. It's just, again, if you kind of, you can literally look at all this, because anyone who is a member has access to the whole library, and you can kind of see how things have developed over the years. So it's been an awesome ride. I mean, I love what I do. I think that it's just a tremendous value. And yeah, so that's kind of how it, if you have any specifics you want me to cover, I'm definitely game, but that's kind of how it came to be what it is today.
Oh, that's great. I mean, I'd like to even back up a little bit before that. And my question is, how did you connect with those people in the first place?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, a lot of it, this is actually one of the main benefits, and, I know that you guys have experienced this. One of the main benefits of going to events and meeting people, shaking people's hand, introducing yourself, having some conversations, that makes it a lot easier, right? When you kind of know them, you've established some rapport, you're a human being, they're a human being, you're meeting them on those terms, to then, introduce the idea of like, hey, we have an audience, they would really love what you're doing, how would you like to become a contributor? So, I can definitely say that it was a boon for me to leverage the credibility. Again, if we go back to 2009, it was the credibility of Magnetic Sponsoring. So Magnetic Sponsoring was a very well-known brand, and so that was it was actually very easy to reach out and leverage the credibility of magnetic sponsoring and say, hey, we have a publication here at Magnetic Sponsoring. Would you like to contribute and then, receive essentially exposure to our customer base? And the answer to that question, I would say 9 times out of 10 was yes, absolutely.
Sure,
yeah, and so I really, finding contributors was, really, for someone that's new, I would probably recommend obviously a slightly different strategy. But again, it was a boon for me to be able to leverage, the brand of magnetic sponsoring. So it made it really easy to reach out to people, and pretty much anyone that I could conceive of, like, oh, hey, that person would be cool, and I would literally just kind of watch. I, keep an eye on my inbox. I'd keep an eye on what's happening on Facebook or elsewhere, and just kind of see who's doing something cool. And of course, one thing to keep in mind is marketers are always launching things. They always have new products coming out, new promotions. And so you can kind of, if you're looking to be more persuasive, you can kind of wait for an opportune time and say, hey, I see that you're doing something right now. Would you like to come talk about subject matter that relates to what you're doing to my audience? And then the answer is always yes. So,
sure.
So that was,
let's back up even a little bit more than that. And how did you actually make your connection with the people that gave you the opportunity to connect with and create the opportunity for you to become involved with what's working now, with magnetic sponsoring, with those guys? Where was little Andrew back in the day?
Sure.
How did you find your way into this whole arena?
Okay, so we'll do like the origin story. So if we go back, I think, if I'm being honest, I met Tim.
You can lie if you want to, but
okay, I'll do. I think that this is true. I'm not 100% certain, but I think it's true that I met Tim Irway at a raw food potluck, and I think that was my first introduction to him. At the time, I was working in a business that was in the health niche, and it was the guy I was working with. I was helping him expand his online presence. Was in kind of that very, very cutting edge living foods, raw foods kind of world. And so Tim was at the time dating someone who was an enthusiast of raw food, and so we were introduced again kind of at a potluck. That's sort of how I first met him, and the relationship kind of grew from there. One of my coworkers at that company was Craig Allen, who I mentioned earlier, who then became the Magnetic Sponsoring Affiliate Manager. So Craig actually pursued working with Magnetic Sponsoring before I did. So Craig, and I'm not entirely sure what his initial role was, but he quickly grew into the Affiliate Manager. So Craig jumped on board. There was an opportunity for Craig. So Craig jumped on board, and he was like, hey, the company is expanding really quickly. We need help. So he reached out to me, and I was like, absolutely. And then there was actually another individual. I don't know if you guys might remember Dan Ondiega, but Dan and I were brought on at the same time, and Dan did traffic and affiliate stuff for us as well. So Dan and I were brought on initially as interns, and like I said, we were doing a lot of social media stuff at the time, traffic stuff, content aggregation and marketing, and we actually, we were roommates there for a while, and miss Dan. He's a good guy. He has. I need to reconnect with Dan. I know he's moved off to Japan, and I know he's doing great things now because he's a way better, way more capable marketer than myself. He's destined for greatness. So yeah, so that's kind of how I got brought into the fold. Was initially as an intern, and then from there, my role just kept expanding. So I just kind of the way to get responsibility is, of course, to put yourself in the way of responsibility and to essentially be excited and be available for more responsibility. So it just kind of makes my personality and the things that I'm really passionate about are really kind of geared towards an editorial role. So it just kind of made a lot of sense. So as the company was expanding and growing, and as various, if you've seen an org chart, as various responsibilities were being assigned, it just made a lot of sense for me to kind of gravitate towards an editorial place. And so it just kind of naturally involved. So once I was a part of the organization, then my role kind of grew from there. And then as soon as I found what's working now, I was like, okay, this is definitely like this is for me. Like this is my home. And so that's been pretty much like my primary focus ever since. I mean, I obviously do other things, but that's still kind of my primary focus. So hopefully that kind of fleshes that out.
No, I think that's perfect. So, I mean, initially you made your connection through a raw food live event, and then you created a relationship with the people that were there, and that developed into you created an opportunity for you, which you took advantage of that opportunity, and then now it's developed into what you're doing now, which is it's amazing. So yeah, definitely connect with your buddy there, and don't let that one drop. That's a relationship you need to foster.
Yeah, right? It's a good reminder. It's like, I definitely got to see what Dan's up to these days.
Yeah. So Katrina, I know you've got a burning question.
I always have burning questions, and especially for Andrew. I always have burning questions for Andrew. So one of the things that I know a lot of our viewers want to know is, like, you went out and kind of, I guess the fear factor. There's a huge fear factor that a lot of people experience. And so you kind of took on a role, and if anyone knows Andrew's backstory, I mean, you came from the construction world. I wasn't sure, editing was your big thing for writing newsletters. Was there like a fear moment when you launched this and you actually put this into place? Was there any kind of doubt? I mean, do you still kind of experience, like, am I going to get this done on time? Am I going to get the right columnists in there? What were some things that may have held you back, but you still kind of broke through that? Sure.
So the best thing, we all obviously have certain fears. As you're growing, and this is, I'm sure Richard Branson, right, has certain fears. There's a level, above where he's at, and I'm sure he's got some fears about. It's like it doesn't matter what level you're at. So when I was new, a new marketer, I can definitely remember, and I think I've told this story before, but I can remember the first webinar I did, and I was very nervous. It was a pretty big deal. I mean, I was. I knew that this webinar was going to be, not only were a lot of people going to be there live, but then thousands upon thousands of people were going to watch it after the fact. And if I actually knew how many people at this point had listened to that first webinar I did, I mean, I know that it's probably like in excess of, it's in the tens of thousands. Let's put it that way. I've listened to that first webinar, and I was so nervous at the time. I was like choking on my words. I mean, it was bad. It was pretty bad. So I did a pretty, if we're being honest, I did a kind of a terrible job, honestly. And the blessing of that was, I mean, I put myself, because here's the thing, we always have opportunities to grow. We always have opportunities to take on more responsibility. We always have opportunities to do better, to climb higher. So we can always put ourselves out there. And the thing is, even if you do a bad job, it's not like people are going to throw stones at you. It's not like you're going to get like, it's not going to be like a terrible thing, or not stones, but maybe just fruit or rotten veggies or something. Stones, that's a little harsh, but that's not really what happens. Like you can do a bad job at something, and most people are not really going to hold that against you. Most people will actually be. Matter of fact, I've never even heard anyone. I just know that I did kind of a bad job, right? But no one's actually said like, "Oh my God, Andrew, I was like embarrassed for you," or anything like that. It's like, no, it's not like it. And the cool thing is like after you fumbled on something, then it's kind of uphill from there, right? Like I'll never be in a situation where I'm like that nervous and that like choking on my words and that like quaking in my boots and I'm like, oh my God, there's like 800 people here.
So can I interrupt you real quick? So I want to know. So I'm going to tie this into No Excuses real quick. That's coming up there. You had to interview top leaders. I mean, we're talking six-figure income leaders. You've probably interviewed Mike Dillard. I'm almost positive you have.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You've interviewed Tim Irway. You've interviewed multiple massive big-name people that are in and out of this industry all the time. how do you tell somebody that's brand new, that kind of has stars in their eyes, that are going to this live event? Because we talk about it all the time. Like, you're going to this event, go and meet people. Like, go and introduce yourself, take a picture. Is that important? And how do you get over that starstruck look of like?
Yeah. So I'm a really big fan of just putting yourself in the way of something, because if you think too hard about it, you're just going to make it like a bigger mountain for you to climb. So whether it's, I can remember the first time I did an interview. So this was at No Excuses 2. The whole BetterNet crew and myself, we flew out there with camera equipment, everything, and I interviewed every single person that was on the stage. I'd never done that before. It was like what I decided to do is I was like, I'm just not going to think too much about this. Like I'm just going to do it, right? And I know that seems like maybe that's challenging advice, or maybe it's like not exactly maybe what you want to hear, but sometimes you just have to do things, and you can't. I mean, I'm sure it's kind of like skydiving. I've never been skydiving. I have a thing about heights, so I probably will never go skydiving. But I think the more you think about jumping out of that,
it's you and me, Andrew. I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the idea. At the same time, I recognize that we live in a very special time in history where we've not really had the opportunity to go skydiving at any other point in human history. So it would be kind of a shame to not capitalize on it. But at the same time, I got to think about heights, and I just don't know if that's for me. Anyway, point being,
how about space diving? How do you feel about that?
Space, I feel like as long as I'm not seeing, because it's heights that really get me, as long as I'm not like seeing what's happening. So if I'm in like,
we're going to go up above the atmosphere, and you and I, we're going to jump out together.
That video, like the Red Bull dude, like up in the high altitude balloon. That sounds great. Here's the thing, though, like if you think too much about any one thing, you're just going to make it that much more painful. There's certain things that you just have to do. So this is something I recommend that everyone goes to the Landmark Forum. It's like truly transformational. One thing I realized when I went to the Landmark Forum was I had, as I think a lot of people do, kind of a thing with failures. Like, I don't really want to fail. I don't really want to like do anything badly. And I resolved at a time when I kind of recognized that fear of failure that I had. This was even before this was like 2008, I think. I went to the Landmark. I recognized the fears that were holding back, and I said, you know what? And I thought about my life, and I was like, I don't really think I've ever failed at anything. And I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, when have I ever failed? How come failing is like such this huge thing that I feel? So I actually resolved. I was like, I'm going to fail. That was my commitment to myself. I am going to fail at things, and that was what I decided to do. So my attitude since then is whether or not I do a good job or just an awful job or whatever, it's like it's just going to be what it's going to be, and I'm going to do it regardless. And so I'm going to put myself in the way of various opportunities. I'm going to say yes to things that I have no idea if I can actually do, and I'll just see what happens. And it hasn't always gone like amazingly well, but you know what? I'm still here. I've grown through every experience like that I've ever had, and I recommend that for everyone. I mean, you know, if you're starstruck and you walk up to someone and it's awkward, that will not be the first time they've been in that situation. They're just going to kind of laugh and just, be cool and casual with you. It's not a big deal. Even if you walk up and you don't even like know what to say. You don't need to know what to say. You don't have to rehearse it. You can just walk up and see what happens. It'll be okay.
Yeah, I agree. So you're going to be at No Excuses, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
it is absolutely one of the highlights of the year. I recommend that everyone makes it to No Excuses. It's just tremendous. Like I said, I met Tim Irway at a raw food potluck. I've met a lot of incredible people at various events. No Excuses is one of my favorites. You just never know. There are companies that have been started that have gone on to make hundreds of millions of dollars that just started because some guys, met each other at an event. We're like, hey, you've got a skill set, I've got a skill set. We could do something with that. So I think going to events is something that it's a little intangible when you think about that idea of networking, but it's huge. I mean, networking and the connections and the realizations and breakthroughs you're going to make by meeting these people, it's invaluable. You really can't put a price tag on it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, that's what life is about. It's about meeting people. It's about creating relationships and developing relationships. And it can be a meetup group. It could be a raw potluck. I never have found one of those in my area. I'm just not aware of those.
So can I ask? I'm going to kick you off. Hold on, we only got about less than 5 minutes here.
Okay,
but
and I need to ask my question too.
Yeah, you do. I want to ask one quick question, and then it's all you. But I want to know, and you got to keep this kind of short because I do want to hear what your answer is to Doug's question for this one. But where do you see what's working now going? Like, do you have a vision of it to kind of stay where it is or grow from that? Like, what is it that I'm always curious on what your bigger vision is for what's working now?
Okay, I'm gonna give you the biggest one. It's not the only one, but the biggest one. I want to take it back old school. I want it to be a physically printed newsletter that arrives in your mailbox. I want to take it old school. So that's the immediate vision.
That's going to come back around. I'm sure it will. So, Andrew, here's the question. Tell us something about Andrew that no one else has ever heard before.
Ooh. You know, all right. Okay, let's think about this. Something that no one else has ever heard before. Well, something that probably everyone listening to this presentation has probably not heard before, because I don't tell this story very often, but I actually had an exorcism performed on me when I was in Indonesia by a local shaman who rubbed garlic over my body and and performed like a dance and a chant, and there was like a ring of salt around me. I mean, it was like, we're talking like some very intense indigenous shamanic kind of activity, because I was quite ill at the time. I was having vertigo and a ridiculous fever, and I was actually seeing visions of what appeared to me to be like kind of like a demon attacking me. So I'm not going to venture to interpret exactly what that was, or I'm not going to venture that. All I know is I had an exorcism performed on me when I was in Indonesia, and it seemed to be effective. So make of that what you will.
Okay,
Excellent.
well, no, I mean, that's when I meet you at No Excuses, we'll have to have a further conversation, because I definitely have some further insights into exorcisms.
Sure, can't wait.
I'm going to leave it at that. I've never talked to Katrina about this, so.
This should be entertaining. I want to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah,
Andrew?
Yeah, definitely.
Andrew, I do have a question from you from our audience member, and you may know this particular audience member. His name is Nick Hobner.
Okay, all right.
And Nick wants to know, how do you keep your hair so pretty?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm happy to hear. Actually, it's pretty. I'm due for a haircut, but I don't condition, and I know that Nick has actually a better beauty regimen than I do, because I know he conditions and uses I think serum as well, and so that's something I need to experiment with. So right now it's literally just shampoo. But everything else is just all natural, baby.
Nice. So real quick, I mean, we've got another question. If you can answer this in 15 seconds, fantastic. But the question from Bradley Chase, Brad out there, is asking, how important is the art of copywriting?
It is, I think, it's very, very, very important. Presentation skills and copywriting are the two most valuable skills you could ever learn. So being able to speak publicly and present, whether that's in person or on a webinar, and then 2, copywriting, so written salesmanship, essentially. 2 most important things you can ever learn.
Excellent. Okay. Andrew, last but not least, we're down to the last 30 seconds here. Where can people find you online? Can they connect with you? Where's the best place? Okay.
So I mentioned this earlier. I'm putting together what I'm calling the Chronicle of Drawing. It's still in its infancy, but you can head over to beyondattractionmarketing.com. That's my blog. It's undeveloped. It's in development. You can hop on my list if you'd like. You can check out right now. I'm chronicling everything going on with what's working now. There's a lot more to come. Like I said, it's in its infancy, but I have grand visions for it. So beyondattractionmarketing.com. That's where you'll find me.
So how do they get on your list? Do you have an email address that they can find you at?
Oh yeah. Well, if you go to Beyond Attraction Marketing, you'll see there's an opt-in there if you'd like to hop on my list. You're more than welcome to do so. Otherwise, you can find me on Facebook as well. That's another easy place to find me. But between those two, you shouldn't have any trouble getting through to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out. We are at a little over
Oh.
I know, it's horrible, but everybody loved this, so thank you so much for hanging out with us. Doug, can I wrap it up real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, I got a million questions to ask you, but we don't have time.
Next time.
29 minutes, so Katrina, wrap it up.
Okay, so if you guys want more events, please make sure you like our Google Plus page, so you can attend our live hangouts, ask questions. There's a lot of comments going on in the Q&A right now. You guys are awesome and having tons of fun with this. Also, all these are turned into iTunes, so go ahead and visit us on iTunes. Look up the 29-minute Hangout, and you'll see all of our previous ones, including this one here, which will be a podcast for you guys. So thanks, guys, for joining us. Our special guest next week is still going to stay a special guest until we tell you, but we look forward to having you guys here, same time, same place. Join us in the 29-minute Hangout on Tuesday nights at 8:30. Thanks, guys, for joining us, and have a good night. Andrew, hang around for just a moment.